You are 2 months. All right, let me start admitting some people here. Okay. Natalie, I pinned you already. Okay, so we're gonna get started. It's 12:01. So today
Mhm.
we have the lovely Sharon Walker. I will let you introduce yourself after, but today's show really is about changing our perspective. What I like to say, changing our perspective on menopause, how we can view it as, I think you and I had talked in the past about it's a rebirth, it's a new time, it's an amazing experience for us. But, I have seen and I have read that menopause really has had a long line of negative connotations. I mean, if you're not talking bad about menopause, then we're actually ignoring it. Some women just ignore it
Yeah,
altogether. And
absolutely.
we know that it doesn't have to be this way. It is an actual major life event, but it doesn't have to be one that is dreaded. It can be a time that we reinvent ourselves, our relationships, our goals. And, truthfully, many societies view it. I mean, when I was reading up and doing research,
Yeah,
so many other cultures, Sharon, are talking about them. Women are being, revered for their menopause journey and shown in a different light. Whereas I think the
yes.
Western world has really become taboo. It's really all about taboo. So anyway, I will stop talking because I think that you're going to have so much. I know that you're going to have so much to share on how we can. So please introduce yourself, Sharon, and let's get started.
Okay, I'm Sharon Walker. Sometimes go by Shay, but those who know me from years ago, it's Sharon. And I'm 60 now. I went through my menopause journey about 8 years ago, ended 7 years ago. And I did have a negative connotation with it at the beginning because of and I think this is what it is in Western societies. Youth is praised so highly that when you begin, menopause is letting you know that you're no longer young. And
Mm.
so I think it can have that negative connotation because we are looking at, oh, we're no longer young. Are we still desirable? What are we going to do? All of that. And what I found from my life, it was, happening around the same time as my children were leaving and going off. And then it became, well, okay, what am I going to do now? What about me? And that took many years, right? So I think, menopause itself, even the name menopause, pauses are a time to take a look at what's going on now. Um, is life the way we want it to be in this moment? Or, and pause and really assess where we are and where it is that we want to go. And, on the metaphysical side of it, it's really can be very abstract, right? Because we're looking at that we have the physical thing going on, which we're very aware of what's going on physically, but what's going on metaphysically for us, what's going on in our spiritual life, what's going on in our bodies. Are we engaged with our body? Are we paying attention to what our body is saying to us? Are we paying attention to what our heart is asking for us to do? And that's, I think, really the whole crux of it is, we've been taught, and I think the way many of us operate, which this is my practice not to operate this way, is that we're not living in the present and what's going on for us right now. We're trying to recreate what we've had in the past, looking for ways to feel, to mother someone, to continue mother children who have long since passed. For those of us who have children, that they've passed the stage of where they want to be mothered and want to be mothered in that way. but because we haven't shifted and paid attention to, well, what do I really want to do? What is my heart asking me to do? What is this moment asking of me? We've been taught to behave in a certain way, and then we continue to behave in that particular way, even when it's no longer serving us, right? So, I think about how I used to behave in the past is I would go and go and go and go and go and go and go. I would be tired, but this has to be done, that has to be done, this has to be done. We now get to this stage and age of life, and physically we may not be able to do that anymore, but we continue to try and do it. And then we have health issues, right? It's because we're not paying attention to our body and what our body is saying to us, So I think the first thing that I really learned about menopause or going through the process is really pausing and paying attention to what's going on for me now. And it coincided with, I had an issue all my life of figuring out what my purpose was in life. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And I was searching and searching and seeking and seeking. And now, now that children were moved out of the way and, life changed, I had to really sit and face myself and say, what does this time have for me? And it took me a while. I continued to do old things, trying to start another business, in the business world as an entrepreneur. I'm still an entrepreneur, but I had to begin to pay attention that my heart had been calling for me to be an artist for so long, and I hadn't paid attention to it. And after I began to paint, I found that I, a friend of mine had reminded me that I was in an art class, and she said, "You said it was always your dream to paint." And I said that. I hadn't even remembered saying it, but that had always been my dream. So now in this, taking that pause, and I took many wrong steps. I, made a decision. That's the thing about life. You can make a decision and change your mind. There's no one holding you to the decision that you made except for you. And that was one of my big things. I always felt if I made a decision or I said I was going to do something, I had to do it because I said it. You don't have to. You don't have to. It's this time that you honor yourself, honor how showing up for yourself looks, right? And so what I find now is I may make a plan with someone and then I have this feeling, I really don't want to do this. I'm tired, or I don't have that energy, whatever it is. And because I've practiced honoring myself, usually the other person will call me and say, "I'm so sorry, but I can't do it anymore." And the universe works its magic, So, so living in the moment, really listening to what your heart is asking you to do. What is your purpose? That's something that I'm really working with, and working with other people as well, is, particularly for those of us that have struggled with what is mine to do, rather than what has been laid out for us to do. We have a job, or we have, whatever and you can have had a job for many years and loved it, and all of a sudden you're not loving it anymore, right? This is the pause to begin to look at, is this still serving me? Is this job still serving me? Pay attention to your feelings. Your feelings let you know what's really going on with you. Long before we cognizantly know, our body is speaking, right? Our body is saying something else is needed here, right? And actually, sort of going back to menopause, when I was, just doing some research, I didn't realize that progesterone, physically, our body, progesterone and estrogen, all,
Sorry.
and
Go
sure.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, progesterone and estrogen fall, and that's the sort of the gear that kicks us in to always be doing for others. So now with the pause, you come to the place of, do I really want to do this for this person? I don't really feel like doing this, but because that's the way we've always behaved, we tend to do it anyway. And
So
mhm.
sorry. So I wanted to capture what you were talking about of honoring ourselves, because I think as women, we really struggle with this.
Yes.
Personally, about doing for ourselves. I mean, this is something that as a coach that I teach.
Mm-hmm.
But when we get to that point where we're no longer with the kids and all of that, but then we're going through this change of menopause and we're physically just feeling like crap, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
How do
Mm-hmm.
we actually do that? How do we move through that exhaustion and all of that to be able to honor ourselves, to listen to that call that's within us? How do we actually do that?
It's practice, right? It really is practice because um it's, we don't usually, we never get up and just do something differently, right? Today, at first it takes the thought. You begin to think about, I don't want to do it this way anymore. This isn't working for me. We may be saying it a lot. This isn't working for me. I don't want to do it this way. And sometimes we think something is wrong with me. What's wrong with me? I'm not the same anymore. And then, we kind of badmouth menopause and the stage of life that we're in. But we have to think about it. If we're not in this stage, where are we? It's this or nothing at all, right? So we need to come to a place of loving ourselves, loving this time of life, and, really um, aligning ourselves with where we are now. And so, like, personally, the alignment, and this can take time. There's chronological time, that's the clock. And we want to say, in 6 months, I must be doing this. But biological time, there is so much that we need to process or go through. Sometimes we've experienced trauma, that trauma needs to be healed. We've experienced, we have our way of being that is so ingrained that we have to practice our way out of that way of doing things the same all the time. And so, um, you know, I think the real gift of menopause is we can't ignore,
Mhm.
that this change is coming, right? And actually, when I started going through menopause, I saw it as something negative. But then I began to, it's funny because the other day, I can't remember who I was with, but it was a young woman, and maybe it was one of my daughters, and she was talking about her period was starting. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing, isn't it? Right? I don't have to think about that anymore. I don't have to worry. I don't have to, it's just not a thing. And that's a great thing, you
Mhm.
know?
It's a beautiful
Um,
gift.
it's a
Absolutely.
beautiful gift. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful gift. Now, there are other physical things that do happen that can be seen as a negative. Nutrition, how we eat, how we're taking care of ourselves, how we're resting. Nikki, you talk about this. I'm reading your stuff, is we really have to take care of ourselves So because we can't do the same thing that we used to do, we don't have the same body, but we can still live a happy life that is fulfilling and engaging and loving. And, you know, yes, maybe there are people that can't stay in our life anymore because we're not the same person we used to be. It may be the job that can't stay. It may, you know, whatever it is, it's going to be different for each of us. And that's really important as well, that each of us pays attention to what is right for us and not look and see someone else doing something else and then feel that that is what we should be doing as well. You know, I've seen, you know, people that continue to raise children. They, you know, foster children and things like that, which is a great thing. I could never do it. You know, I'm barely able to take care of my dog outside of me, right? So it's important to really, again, pay attention that inner world, right? So metaphysics is the combination of the inner, the physical, and the spiritual that comes together, right? And each combination is different for each of us. And we each have to make it okay to do it our own way and not pay attention to what outside forces are saying. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I was even saying, Nikki, that even to say Menopause Monday, years ago, that's not something that you would see and not something you would see advertised. And so to stand up and talk about menopause, because this is what women need, and this is your purpose. You're following what your heart is telling you to do, and now you're living on purpose. You know, your purpose, you're fulfilling your purpose, you're paying attention to the inside and then allowing it to express on the outside.
Yeah.
So that is one thing I would say, is really paying attention to who am I in this moment? What is it that I want to express? And how do I want to express it?
That's beautiful. I love that, Sharon. I really do, because I do feel it took me a while, just as you said, it took me a while to get there because I was so trained on what I had been doing for so long and that I must continue it. And truthfully, it was a huge leap and a lot of fear to push through that all of this change was happening. But to be able to embrace that change and see it as something good. And I think that's where there's like where it meets is that you have this desire, but there's that fear, and then there's all this change. How do
Yes,
we marry the two, or how do we come together? I mean, what are some things that we could do? We talk about listening to the call, but I always feel action creates the change.
yes,
So
yeah,
maybe just doing one thing that suffices that.
yeah.
And if I can add, if I can, Sharon, before you jump into answering the
Mhm.
question, if I can add a little bit to that question. You know, you said that we're not stuck, and you said that we can make changes and all that. Sometimes it is the how do I? So like, what are some of the steps to changes? So for me, the number one indicator that something needs to be looked at is resistance. If I'm coming up with resistance on it, not just 1 month, not just 1 week, but if there's persistent, perpetual resistance around something, then that gives me cause to want to look at it.
Yeah,
But then what are the steps? Because I can't just be like, oh, I don't like doing this anymore, I'm not going to do it anymore. There have
right.
to be some. So
Yeah.
what are some real concrete steps that we can look at when we're wanting to make changes?
Yeah. So the thing is, anytime we're making change, there is where we are, where we want to be, and there's a gap in between, right? And if we could leap over that gap by ourselves, it wouldn't be an issue, but it is. There are many things that you can do. One, you know, assess where you are, where you want to be, and one, build a community of people that can support you through what it is that you want to do. Find someone to collaborate with, someone who you can trust and has a similar mindset. That's another thing you can do. Coaching is a great way to do it because it, with coaching, I always saw it as the person who can hold onto your dream for you while you can't always hold it for yourself.
Love that.
So yeah, so you have someone, it's more than a cheerleader, right? Because it's someone that's helping you with the steps to go through, as particularly if you don't know what those steps are, right? Sometimes you don't actually know where it is that you're going, right? You just know you need to make a change, and so you have to step out. So you always, the first step is always a little step, right? The little step of calling someone, a little step of writing down, what is the angst that I'm feeling right now? The writing down, what is my resistance? Paying attention to what it is that you always do, right? I was talking to a friend yesterday and she said, I always, I always delay, right? And well, our conversation was sometimes the delay is happening because there's something for you to pay attention to. So, Natalie spoke about the resistance. The resistance is showing up because there's something else in there and it's showing up as resistance. You're feeling it as resistance. Is it fear? Are you fearing something that's going on? Another thing you can look at is, what does this feeling remind me of, right? Because feelings tend to go in a chain, right? So something could have happened when you were 20 and it made you have this feeling, right? And then the feeling can come back now and you say, why am I having this feeling? It reminds me of. That can be a way to understand what the resistance is, right? Maybe you had a traumatic event and you're not even aware that that is still affecting you. So life coaching, therapy, I've done therapy. That helped me tremendously. And it's a slow journey. And I'll share my, personal story. As a creative, I'm an artist. Yes, I paint, but I also consider myself a creative. Creating my life with purpose and attention and intention, right? And that way the universe comes in to help, whatever term you use, right, to describe the all-knowing, all-being, that gets involved, and it's paying attention, right? And I'm using that word a lot, but it really is paying attention to where you are, right? Because if you're not giving your attention to something, you can't get where it is that you're going, right? So first steps, pay attention to where you are, get help, build a community, collaborate with someone if that's it. I'll share, I just started a new venture, Instagram Live, a community for artists. And actually, Lena is here on the call, and we talked about it in December, and we're like, oh, this is a great idea, and ideas are firing, and we're writing it down. We'll do our first live in January. Well, January didn't happen, right? And we're like talking about posting on IG and doing this, and we're doing it and then not doing it, and doing it and then not doing it. February comes around, traveling, I'm going somewhere, all that. March, an art show, it still doesn't happen. April, May, June. Our first one was this past weekend. But what happens, and this is something that you need to pay attention to as well, is that when you're making change, you start out with the decision, and then you say you're going to do it, and then you don't do it. And a period of time goes by and you haven't done it. And then you do it again, and another period of time goes by and it doesn't happen. But what happens if you stick to it, you stick to it through having your community, having your collaborator, having your life coach, having your therapist, whatever you do, if you stick to it, that time of doing it lasts longer, and the time of not doing it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. So you go from not doing it to doing it, but it doesn't happen all at one time. And we have to give ourselves grace that it doesn't happen all at one time. But put the things in place to support you to make those changes, and it will happen, right? Sometimes it can take years, honestly. It took me, I'm starting something else right now, talking about living life on purpose. And I've been talking about this for years. And with everything that I'm doing, it's helped me build confidence, helped me build my voice. There was a time that I wouldn't be able to get on a Zoom and talk about anything. And now all you have to do generally is give me the first sentence and I'm off, right? It didn't happen overnight. This took time, right? And honestly, more of what I'm doing for myself has happened since menopause, since these last 8 years than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's it. Build your community, build support, whatever way support looks for you, and keep at it. Just keep going. And I write it down in a journal, and I have my daily journal, and I keep writing it on the next page and the next page and the next page, because I don't want it to fall off. So if it falls off, sometimes it falls off, and I'm going back through a journal, I say, hey, I was supposed to be doing this, and I put it back on.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think also the accountability. You talked about having somebody to work with you and help you through it. I think is awesome. I mean, I know certainly for me doing this menopause Mondays, it was something that I had thought about for quite a while. And then it was literally, listen, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And just being able to go through with it. This is what has ended up. But what I love about the accountability is just that you're able to, somebody's going to say, we're going to do this together. But I want to touch a little bit on, we're going through menopause, we're going through this change, we're going through this mental change as well, because of, we know, the hormones. We have these desires, we want them so bad, but we don't, one way we don't know how to get them, but another way we don't really want to honor them because we're scared, we're full of fear. When you were at that stage of, you knew you wanted to be an artist, but you didn't know where to start or how to start, what did you do? Did you just start? You just said, I'm going to pick up a paper?
I just started. I bought an easel and I put it in the garage and I started painting, and I didn't paint that often. And, when I talk about living life on purpose and with intention, my intention was already there. And I joined a couple of NGOs that supported artists. Even at the time, I didn't call myself an artist. I joined anyway. And I got an email, and it was, I wasn't calling myself an artist. I wasn't even doing that. I was still looking at, should I continue with life coaching, and should I do, I was trying to flip houses. Oh my God, that was a disaster. And I got this email, and it said, come in here, artist talk. And I wasn't thinking myself an artist, but I felt like I wanted to go. This is listening to your heart. I felt like I wanted to go. I said, I'm a creative, I'll go. And I sat there in the audience, and it was three different types of artists. One was a painter, one was a puppeteer, and one was a filmmaker. And they spoke about how they could make money as an artist, how they made money as an artist. And as I sat there, I felt the disparage, this disparity in my energy just all come together in front of me. And I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be an artist. And I went home that day. I cleared off my dining table. I put all my artwork, not in a garage, in AC, put all my art stuff in, there. And if I didn't know what to paint, I would get a bowl of fruit and I would just put it and I would paint it, and created a website, which has changed like 4 or 5 times since then. But that's okay, because I was changing so much. The website and what I was saying had to change to keep up with me. I've come a long way in those 6 years. It's 6 years ago that I started painting.
Wow. That's very powerful, actually. That is actually very powerful that you followed that thing. So let's talk a little bit about, you talk about the metaphysics, and I love that. Because I am a mindfulness coach and a spiritual life coach. So I love that connection of that mind of, I don't want to go into too much woo-hoo because a lot of people do that. Talk to me a little bit about how do we recognize, for the people who are not that, let me say, spiritually minded, because it's not about religion, which is what I always say to my clients. It's nothing to do with religion, but there is something bigger, a bigger force out there that is guiding us. How do we go from being closed-minded or we're always on this path, right, to being able to be open to receive whatever's message is going to come in? How do we be open? How do we listen? How do we recognize that something is actually gnawing at our heart?
It is, I think, always to ask the question. And one question that you can ask is it true? Right? So many times we've been, and you spoke about fear, and the fear I had was, I'm not good enough to be an artist. And the question is that true? Or when did I learn that was true? Right? And then it is, and it's investigating and always asking and seeking to know something more than you know right now. And because when you're learning, you are always growing. You're always growing. There's always something else to know. There's something else to do. And that's what keeps you alive and vibrant. And I think one of the fears we can have during menopause is that we're no longer alive and vibrant. And when you have found, I found as well, when you have found that which your heart is asking you to do, age does not matter, right? I cannot emphasize that enough. Age doesn't matter. In my community, I have art friends of all ages, from in their mid-20s to my age. And yes, we have different relationships, but I have one of them, he's 35, and he speaks into me. What are you worried about? You're a great artist. You just did this, and you just did this, and you just did this, right? And that's building the community. And if you're always asking the question, if you're always looking to fulfill what your heart is asking you to do, you're always going to feel alive. You're always going to feel vibrant, and there's going to be something for you to get up and do tomorrow. Wow. If you don't answer that call, you tend to go the other way. And yes, fear can stop you from doing it, and fear of what other people think, fear of, you're not good enough, fear that you're not young enough. Let me tell you, you're never too old, and it's never, ever too late, ever, right? And so fear. Paulo Coelho wrote the book, The Alchemist. And it was about, he calls it the legend. And it's a boy seeking his legend, which is your purpose in life. The book is great, but like 15 or 16 years ago, it was the 10th edition book that I bought. And in the front of it, he talked about what it took for him to become a writer. His parents put him into a mental institution because he wouldn't become a lawyer, and they thought there was something wrong with him, and he just never gave up. And so he was talking about the things you have to overcome to become the person you're supposed to be. And the first thing you have to do is unearth your purpose. And the unearthing is from all of the negativity you heard about, I can't do this, you can't do this, you won't make money at it, you're not good enough, whatever it is, you have to unearth that, right? And that comes from, is it true? Is it true that I can't make money as an artist? There are plenty of people out there making money as an artist, right? Then after that, it is accepting that this is yours, right? Because then it's like, there's a separation. What you want is over there and I'm here. I need to accept it, right? The third thing, he called it, the way he described it is love. That you say the love of your spouse or the love of your children or the love of whatever, whoever, you say, well, because of them, I don't want to, take time for myself to do this thing, or, I still need to do this for my husband or this for my children or this for the job. So that's the third thing. You have to get over and claim that this is mine and this is mine to do. And then the last thing is yourself, right? You get to the door of what you've been wanting all along. And out of fear, you stop and you turn around and you go back. That is the last step to overcome. So you unearth, accept it, get over that it's, that you need to do something for someone else. And the final thing is don't sabotage yourself. Don't sabotage yourself. I was watching this movie, Andre Pacello, the opera singer, and he had to overcome, he wasn't trained from young, so he didn't learn until he was in his 20s, which is late for a singer. And he, he went through the whole process, and he was on a train. Pavarotti could not sing, and they asked him to fill in, and he was on the train with his wife going, and they're there, and he gets up and he says to his wife, "This is silly, let's go back home." And she said, "What do you mean? This is what you've wanted all your life. We're going." And that's why you have the community around you, right? Those people who are not going to let you give up at that last moment.
I love that. The community to me is always so powerful. And this is why I created this community. And Natalie and I have been working so diligently doing this. But let's track back a little bit to, you talked about, I think earlier, menopause being, I think, I'm not sure if you use the word, but I use it as a rebirth of who we are now. A lot of women don't see that. They think this is the end, we're only going to go downhill, all of these negative things. How can we reframe that or change that story as we talk about how we view our menopause and how we view ourselves as this rebirth period? How all of this stuff that you've told us, which is, it's fantastic, but how do we change that story to say that this is a rebirthing period for us? So
yeah, it's again accepting, right? And is it true? Is it true that this is the end? And every end is a beginning. Every door closing means something else is open. So this menopause is no different than every other ending, right?
Mhm.
Every ending means that there's a beginning on the other side, right?
Okay. Mhm.
Even as we end this life, there's a beginning. We don't know what it is. And even with menopause, it's an ending of one life, because we have many lives in our one life between birth and death. And there are many, many lives. You know, you have a life as a child, you have a life as a, you know, in your job, as a parent, if you are a parent, you have, you know, all these different lives, right? So if you're seeing menopause as an end, why, you have to ask yourself why, right? Why isn't this end a beginning like every other end is a beginning? And so what we're saying, what we're talking about here is this is a beginning, right? And if you're not able to accept yet that it's a new beginning, just say, show me how this is a new beginning.
Mm.
Every morning, get up and say, show me how this is a new beginning. And the answers will begin to come. Show me how this is a new beginning.
I love that.
With any ending, it's show me how this is a new beginning.
Yeah,
Because
just being able to open and receive, because I think
Mhm.
society, as I said, with all of the stuff that we on Instagram and all of that, it's all this negativity, and nobody is really out there saying exactly what you're saying and showing us how to do it. That this
Mhm.
is a rebirth. This is, for us as women at our stage, as you said, age is really not it. It's just a
Right.
stage.
Yes.
Our
Yes.
state is a rebirth, and that we are worthy of all of these callings that are within us. And I
Yes.
just don't think society is doing that for us.
Yeah. And so that's the gift we are giving, right? The generation before us wasn't able to do it. Our generation is saying, this isn't serving us. We need to create what is serving us, right? We need to talk about menopause. No one ever talked about menopause. I never heard it talked about, before. I had my friends, yes, that we talked about, is this happening? I'm noticing this, I'm noticing that. Um, but to have a whole forum where, like I said before, with menopause on the marquee,
Hmm.
um, we're saying straight up and loud, I am important. This is important. I am going to find my way to this end being a beginning. I am going to find my path, right? And when you look at others and how they're doing it, you're not looking at what they did so much, because yours is going to be different. You're looking at the how. What question did they have? Did they create a group? Where did they find their group? How did they find their group? But you're going from your inside you as your guiding light, right?
Hmm.
And that guiding light needs encouragement, and it needs you to believe in it. Believe that what is your heart is saying to you is true and it's honest, right? And even if it scares you, you know, as you know, I left Jamaica shortly before menopause, or as I was going through it. And it it just was that Jamaica and what I needed to do weren't in alignment anymore, right? I have nothing bad to say about Jamaica. Jamaica has nothing bad to say about me. So I had to find my way as a married woman to say, I signs were around me, right, that were saying, pay attention. I was depressed, right? In that time period, someone I knew had taken their life, right? And I felt that could be me. That
Wow.
could be me, right? And so I had to find a way to make the steps to, say, I can't live here anymore. How am I going to make my way? And this is the other thing. The way is never shown to you. The complete way is never shown to you, ever. You see the step in front of you. So for some, if the step may be just showing up here, right?
Mhm.
And showing up here, you hear something and it gives you the next step. And then you take that next step, and in that step, someone shows up and you say, oh, here's someone for my community, and you just keep going. The only thing I have to say, just keep going. Keep going, keep honoring yourself, keep believing in yourself, keep listening from the inside out, not from the outside in.
I was just going to say that because I think that, we focus so much on symptoms. We're focusing
Mhm.
on, the hot flashes and all of these myriad, these 66 list of symptoms that we keep being pummeled upon. I think we
Mhm.
focus too much on that. And to me, I know for me personally, it clouds almost, or it can almost cloud what is trying to come through and
Right.
come up and come through rather than. So I love the fact that you said start within and not allow the outside to come in, but allow the inside
Yeah.
probably to come out.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up, because when it comes to symptoms, we all don't have the same symptoms.
Exactly.
Some of us have hot flashes, some of us experience, there's a myriad of things to experience through it. So it's, what is your body saying to you, right? Many symptoms can be eased in many ways, but are you doing what you need to do for you to have less of whatever it is that you're experiencing, right?
Mhm.
And the metaphysical part of it, and I have my book right here because Louise Hay, Heal Your Body, right? This book goes everywhere with me.
Same.
And I also had a Kindle version, which my daughter and I were sharing. And when we couldn't share it anymore, she went with my Kindle version. Your body is always speaking to you, no matter what it is. If you are having symptoms of something, Louise Hay gives you a starting point from which to begin to understand what your body is saying, right? So if you're having pain in your arms, for example, or arms represent the ability to hold life, right? So you look in your life and you look, is there somewhere in my life that I'm having a hard time embracing what is happening, right?
Mm.
Symptoms of menopause that are more negative for us have their roots as well. Are we resisting, accepting that we're growing older?
Mhm.
Are we, there are things that come along with it. So as Natalie said before, in the resistance, there's information. In the symptoms, there's information. And there are people out there that know this stuff much better than, I do. This is the thing that they do. Find them. Find the person who is the person for you to help you go through what you are experiencing.
I love that. I absolutely love that because I have that same book and it lives right in my desk here, and it's the same thing. When I feel something comes up for me, I pop into that book, and
Yep.
a lot of it too is it's just tapping into that mindset change because, as you said, we're so fixed on a certain way or a certain being that we're not allowed to think otherwise, that it could possibly be this or being able
Yes.
to, yeah, just being able to change that perspective, which is what
Mhm.
we're all discussing here, is just being able to change, having that shift of
Yeah. A
doesn't need
shift
to
in
be
perspective.
shift in
Yeah.
perspective. But
Yeah.
whatever your beliefs are, as you said,
Mhm.
it's more about tapping into that mindset and saying, do I want to be like this? How do I want to show up on my menopause journey? How do I
Mhm.
want to feel? I don't have to feel all these list of symptoms, as you said.
Yes.
It's unique for everybody. It's tailor made. It's not a one size fit all. I've always said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, does anyone have any questions? Because I'm
Questions, yeah. Everybody is being so quiet.
quiet.
Yes, we have like 5 minutes left or so. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
if anybody has any questions, please pop them in the chat. But I just love this conversation because I too started off on the journey, even as a coach. Coaches need
Mhm.
coaches. I mean, let's
Yep.
face it, coaches need coaches. And when I entered this phase of my life, I felt like the rug had been pulled. And I
Mhm.
did what I wanted to do with my life. You know, did I want to do coaching? Did I want not? Did I want to go back to corporate? My kids had all grown, gone off, and I was like, just like you said, what's next for me? And if I
Mhm.
didn't go in and ask that question and try and get, you know, it's like pulling on a
Clarity.
thread. It's
Yes.
like pulling on a thread. What's next? What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
be where I am today. So I encourage women to pull on that thread, ask that question. Let's
Mhm.
see what the next, if I pull again, what's gonna open up for me.
Yeah. It's funny because also know that you can take a step and that's not the end step. So I did coach training, life coach training, like 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, and started coaching and realized coaching isn't for me. You know, I, I, I can inspire people. I can talk. I can motivate. I can inspire. It's a one-time deal, pretty much, right? Maybe there can be one more conversation, but I'm not the person to walk the journey that a coach does, right? I'm more of, I'm there. I'm more like a cheerleader, I
Cheerleader.
guess.
I see that
Yeah.
in you. Yeah. Yeah.
You can do this, you can. And I'll help you see something differently in a conversation. Um, there's always a nuance. Sometimes it's just this slight twist, and it can make it's like, mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, we all have these desires, we all have these intentions, as you talked about earlier, but without action, then it
Mhm.
just stays as an intention. It's like you have this
Yes.
intention. How do we get to the next, to actually fulfilling our intention? It does take
Yes.
action. And as you said, it's the next step and the next step.
Hmm.
But I think that seeing menopause as that opening for us, as we talk about rebirth, we talk about redefining who we are as women now, these powerful beings that can
Hmm.
create anything that we want in this world. And I loved what you said earlier about if it doesn't work, you try something different. If that doesn't work, you try. We have the ability to change our minds at any moment.
Any point.
And that's
Yeah.
to be seen as a good thing, not a bad thing, but an amazing power that we have earned at this stage of our of menopause, which I love that.
Yeah. I read something the other day and it said, whoever you are now, wherever you stand now, turn around and thank every single version of you that came before, because none of it was a mistake. You come with everything that you've learned, every version of you that you were being, and say thank you, and bring all of what you learned along with you to the next step. There's
I love
nothing to
that.
be left behind, nothing to be left behind, and actually this is coming in, so I'm going to share this. What I had to do for a period of time, at so beginning of menopause, is I had to go back in my life and thought and pick up all the pieces of myself that I had left behind. And so many times we leave whether it's from a marriage, whether it's as a mother, whether it's as a job, and something happens and we, a piece of ourselves we leave behind because whatever reason, it was traumatic, or we felt that that wasn't a good part of ourselves, whatever it is, take the journey and go back and pick up every single piece of yourself. And a great way to do it, if there's an age that is challenging for you in your mind and in your spirit and your heart, get a picture of yourself at that age and put it in your room by your bedside. And when you get up, you tell that version of you how much you love. And if it's difficult to say I love you, practice it. Practice.
I love that. That's a lot of healing in that.
Gather yourself up. Yeah. Every version is important, and you need all of it to go where you're going.
It's who we are. We are all versions of ourselves. That's the thing. We're not, pieces are not falling away and then you magically appear into this. It's as you said, we're just not this. Oh, it is all the pieces of us that make us who we are today.
Yeah. And that's not to say that we're not carrying baggage that we need to let go.
Yeah.
Baggage is maybe some thought we have about someone else, or something that someone else did to us and we're carrying that stuff. That's different, right? That you need to work to let go, but that is usually a shift in perception and nothing else but beginning to see something differently. And when I say shift in perspective, it's a broader perspective, because you keep the perspective that you have and broaden it so you have both. So you can see how you saw it, but you can see it in a new way. And that allows you to let go some of the heavy stuff that we carry.
Oh, I love that. This has just been incredible. There's just so many nuggets, so much good stuff. But I just think that this rebirthing, this is what keeps coming back to me, is this being able to trust ourselves and love ourselves, and to know that what we're going through don't ignore it. So whatever messages are coming in, do not ignore it, because it's something trying to come up to birth.
Agreed. And ignoring it doesn't go away by ignoring it, right? It goes in that baggage that we're carrying. And we want a lighter load on our travel, right?
Yeah.
And that's the shift in perspective. The broadening of perspective is, yes, I have seen menopause as a negative, but there's other ways to look at this. There's some good here, and let that really come and sink in. Yep.
I think focusing on that, focusing on all that good stuff is what you're talking about, because as we know, the law of attraction says whatever you focus on will come back to us. If we focus on all the positives that menopause has, because when you say, oh, menopause has great positive things, you usually get a response of, seriously? I don't think so. But if you really are open and listen and tap into it, focusing on all those positives, that's your gift. That's what you're going to bring in. That's where the shedding and the rebirth process is going to start.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, Sharon, this has been fantastic. My goodness, we've spoken for an hour about this. We could do another hour.
Yeah, it's been a real great conversation. I appreciate your perspective.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Sharon. I so appreciate that. When I send out the replays, obviously I will tag you and put your information if anybody wants to reach out to you, just to have a perspective or just to chat with you. I will definitely put that. Sometimes it's great, as you said, to build your community. And this is the way we do this.
And I'm always open. If anyone wants to email, WhatsApp, whatever it is. I love to talk to people. Believe me, I'm a talker.
Well, listen, you have a very open aura, definitely, and it's fantastic. Thank you so much, Sharon. I so appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you for the opportunity. I had a great time.
All right. Thanks, Sharon.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.